Let's talk Merrimack. I'm your host for today, Jen McGinnis. I've been in Merrimack for about 16 years now, and like a lot of Granite Staters, my family enjoys getting up to the mountains and skiing or snowboarding, at least when it's not negative temperatures. The goal of this show is to talk about things that concern Merrimack residents and to encourage you to get involved in the town. Today's show focuses on the ongoing Senate campaign. Today I'm joined by Jared Sullivan, one of the candidates for the Senate seat that Jean Shaheen is vacating next term. Welcome, Jared, and thanks for taking the time to come on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to run for the Senate?
Sure, yeah. So I should probably start up a little bit before that,
Sure.
which is what made me decide to get into politics.
Okay.
And so I have a 15 years as a real estate economist, like a pretty good, successful career. And one day I was working on some econometric models, which are, not the most exciting thing to talk about. But I was working at my computer, and that's when January 6th, and that's when they started storming the Capitol. And I remember just thinking long and hard about, wow, we've gotten to a point where people have lost all faith in our politics, all faith in our process, and they're willing to actually overturn an election because they think the system is so broken. And I just thought, well, what can I do? Because if we lose our democracy, we're going to lose everything, right? It's just going to be whoever's at the top who's going to decide what problems get solved, what problems get addressed, And I thought long and hard about that, and I said, well, we've got this open district where I live. I live in Bethlehem. My district is Bethlehem and Franconia, currently in the State House. And there was no incumbents, and they just redistricted. And so I said, well, maybe I'll run for that. And maybe if we had more decent people in politics, then we would have better faith in politics. And so that was sort of what got me in there. And then fast forward to, I guess, 2024, and we know what the election was. And Donald Trump won again, which was disappointing because, hey, he was part of the reason why these people thought that they should overthrow the election. And I thought that, him winning is a signal that really the divisions and frustrations with our system are so deep in our country that we need to kind of wake up to this system feels broken. And if it feels broken, perception is reality. And people are going to ignore elections, overturn elections, whatever. And I started thinking long and hard about this. And now, of course, I have 2 cycles of me knocking doors and getting to know people and talk to voters under my belt. And what I keep hearing over and over again is that the system is broken, all you guys do is lie, politicians aren't trustworthy, I hate politics, some version of those statements, right? And at some level, they're not wrong. Because if I have to run against you, all I have to do is convince the voters to hate you more than they hate me. And when you think about that, that's kind of wild. That's our incentive structure. I don't have to actually earn the respect or the admiration or inspire hope in any voter if I can get them to hate you more than they hate me.
Wow.
And our incentive structure is such that is how we are going to behave because I'm an economist, we study incentives. Incentives drive everything, right? Mm-hmm. And our incentives in our system today are to do exactly that. And so I thought, well, you know what I'll do? What can I do now is I'll run for the state's Democratic Party. We have an election after all the big elections, in the off year we always have an election for the state Democratic Party. It's quite boring. It's 300 people get to vote in it or something, and we elect the chair who runs the party, the vice chair, the secretary, all those sorts of positions. And I said, I'm going to run for the Rules Committee because I think the Democratic Party needs to take a page out of the anti-abortion activists where they wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade for decades and they just had the long game and they got it done. Mm-hmm. We need to do the same thing, but for positive reforms that can save our democracy. Things like ranked choice voting, getting rid of gerrymandering, getting money out of politics. And I've thought that for a long time. And so what I ended up doing was say, well, if I run for the Rules Committee, one thing we can do within the New Hampshire Democratic Party, which again is a boring thing that nobody pays attention to, is implement ranked choice voting for our elections, mm-hmm. which I think is a great way to change the incentive structure of trying to get people to hate you to hate me to I need to be nice to the opponent because there might be another opponent in there, and if I'm too nasty, I'm not going to be the second choice in that election cycle. And that, for those of you who don't know what ranked choice voting is, if you had three options, you would rank your first choice, your second choice, your third choice. If the third choice person doesn't make it, they get kicked out, and whoever ranked them as number one their second choice gets the vote. And so you have an incentive to be, create contrast, but not actually attack the other people and be jerks, which is what we see so often now. The mudslinging will reduce. And we've seen this in places where it is implemented, people are less nasty. And so that was like one important reform. And I thought, this is the type of reform we need to save our democracy. And through this process, I ended up having some people, Jeanne Shaheen announced she was going to retire, and some people said, hey, like one person said, hey, this is a cool idea. You should maybe take it nationally, because if you had this national message, that'd be really good for our country. And so I was kind of well, Chris Pappas is the front runner, or would be the front runner. I'm assuming he's going to jump in. And it seemed like the logical choice. I didn't really think too seriously about it until April, when they deported all of those people without due process. Garcia was all over the news. And I was just like, where is the voice? Where is the conviction? Where is the fight of our legislators down in D.C. representing New Hampshire? And they were just silent in that moment. And I found that to be completely unacceptable. So that's a long way to get to why I chose to run, is I want the person in this moment representing me from New Hampshire speaking to the injustice of this moment. Using their voice, because even if you're in the political minority, which I understand they are, just like I am in Concord, I can still use my voice to say, hey, what's happening is wrong, and I'm going to educate the people who follow me, listen to me, see me, and I think that the federal delegation has largely not done that, with some exceptions. Jeanne Shaheen said something about this back in April when this was happening. She did call out, hey, when you take away due process from these people who may be undocumented, you're also taking it away from Americans at the same time.
Yes.
And I appreciated her. She did take I think it was, I want to say it was maybe in March or April, I don't remember. I remember seeing something from her. I looked at what the other people were saying, and it was literally nothing. It was like, happy Passover, and I'm going to fight for New Hampshire. And it's like, how about you fight for our Constitution? So that was what really said, you know what? Maybe I can be a voice that's going to show I can rise to this moment and rise to the uniqueness of this moment. This isn't just normal working backroom deals to move the ball forward a little bit, which is important skill, but that doesn't work well when you're dealing with somebody who wants to be a dictator.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it's a long answer, sorry.
No, that's great. It's really helpful to hear where you're coming from and how you got where you are now. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what strengths and qualifications you bring to this campaign, things that set you apart?
Sure. So I would say, I have a pretty successful career as a real estate economist. Like I said, I worked for 15 years doing that. Once I became a state rep, I wasn't able to do that at the same time, because it's hard to hold down a full-time career job while also being in Concord a few days a week. I came from Concord to here. I wouldn't have been able to work today if I was working at a career job. And so I went from a position where I was making a very comfortable salary. I never had to worry about an unexpected expense, to now I'm literally scooping ice cream. I'm working as custodial staff at Cannon Ski Mountain. So when you guys ski at Cannon and you leave, I'm the one cleaning those toilets. Be nice to me, please. And I ended up, substitute teaching. I managed some properties for people. And so I work for UPS during the holidays. And so I'm really piecing it together. And I get the feeling now of what working class people have to deal with. And that's the thing, is the Democratic Party has lost the working class. We know this, right? We've seen how the elections are. And I think it's because we have lost our ability to listen to them and understand what they're going through. And I get that in a unique way, because I get what it's like I said, to have a good career, and I get what it's like to be struggling and making $30,000 a year and having to figure out how to pay bills and manage expenses. And I think that is a really important voice that needs to be at the table, because the working class are losing faith in our system every year.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really great to have, when I have these conversations, like with a gentleman that I work with at Cannon, sometimes we talk about politics, when we're not very busy. And, he's just frustrated, almost feels like beaten sometimes. He's like, oh, well, politicians are never going to really care much about me. And it's like, they should. We all should, because we're all human. We all got to see the common humanity. And our system is stacked up against these people. These people can't write 5 or 6 or 7-figure checks to help fund campaigns.
Right.
And these people, they have their vote, but they're just one vote. Maybe if they want to donate, they can donate $10, which would be great. But not if you don't want to do that if you think somebody else is going to donate $100,000 to help somebody get elected. So I think we need to really acknowledge that our country is much stronger when everybody has some true say. And I feel like right now it's the billionaires running the show with their large donations. They've captured most politicians on most sides of the aisle. And so it doesn't matter who's in charge if the people at the top just keep getting regulations, subsidies, tax breaks, whatever it might be to help them, while people at the bottom lose access to health care, they lose access to food, they can't afford housing. These are all fixable problems, right?
Right.
And we choose not to. That is a conscious choice that we make because our donor class isn't affected by them. And so because of that, we spend less time thinking about them. And so I think we need more people like myself who can actually relate to the struggles that the working class is going through.
Absolutely. That's a really interesting juxtaposition of going from that career reality to piecing this all together. You look at members of Congress, and one of the interesting things is how much their net wealth changes while they're there,
right?
Which also might change their perspective on
and
the
also
working class.
Also, many of them, obviously the front runner in this race is Chris Pappas. Well, he graduated college in government, went to Harvard, a very smart guy, he's capable, but then he worked at his parents' business, which is a successful business, and he was privileged to be able to jump right into having something to keep him safe while he was a state rep.
Right.
And he then became executive counselor and then a congressman. That's a career politician. And he doesn't actually know what it's like to work in this world where you don't have a safety net behind you, or where an unexpected expense might get you. And he's not a bad example. That's just a common example.
Right.
Many of these people, and I'm not trying to throw shade at him. He's a good man.
Yes.
But in terms of having that perspective, the best perspective he's going to have is just having a conversation. Right. I'm actually living it and having those conversations literally every single day with people.
Right.
Whether it's there or whether it's, I was working over the summer loading trucks for UPS in the morning from 6 in the morning to 9 in the morning. And that was how I paid my bills for a little while. I'm working with people, every single person there, that was a second job to help them pay their bills. One woman, she did that, she went home and napped, and then she went and cleaned the local school. And so it's these people are struggling, and they're not just working 40 hours a week, they're working 60 hours a week.
Right.
Doing back-breaking work, like loading the trucks for UPS is very hard in the summer when it's hot. I would be drenched with sweat. It's not stuff that people think about if you're just somebody who's never had to do that.
Right. And you bring a very unique perspective in that regard. So when you think about the Senate, what are some things that you would hope to accomplish in a term in the Senate?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask, why didn't you try running for the congressional seat or something like that? And the reality of it is I think when I talk about progressive reforms to our system to make it more accountable, make it less toxic, I told you about the ranked choice voting, that's not something you could do at the federal level. What we could do is ban gerrymandering, and we could work to overturn Citizens United. When I go back to what I was saying about the people who wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade years ago, they didn't just wake up and say, oh, we're going to do it next year. They had a plan, and their plan included getting the right judges who share their vision onto the benches. Judges are supposed to be impartial, but we know that they're all humans and they have their opinions, right? And so they got the right judges into the right places, and eventually that pipeline filled up with judges who wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade, and then they were selected in, and we know what happened, right? We can do the same thing for something like Citizens United. And for those of you who don't know what that is what the Supreme Court ruled on in 2020, which said money is speech, and so corporations can be treated as people. And I'm an economist. I do a lot of statistical analysis. I actually did a proper statistical test to look at change before and after, and it's a dramatically different increase in contributions statistically significant afterwards, after this ruling happened in 2010. And to give you a further data point on that is, if you look at like amount spent on campaign spending during presidential years, it's always bigger than the following midterm year, right? Like, so last year will Trump, no pun intended, will beat whatever is likely spent in 2026 during this election cycle.
Right.
There's one exception where the midterms were more expensive than the previous presidential one, and that was in 2010 during the year of that ruling. And it was the one time where midterms, the 2010, spent more money than the previous one, which was 2008 when Obama was elected. It's only happened one time.
Wow.
And it's the year that Citizens United ruling happened. And that's so illustrative, because what it does is when you have to run an election that's going to cost you millions, you have less time to spend talking to average people because you are so focused on how to raise millions of dollars. I know this firsthand. I'm trying to figure out how to raise money now, because this is going to be an expensive race. And, I spend a lot of time having to call people saying, hey, can you make donations, right? Mm-hmm. Once you are plugged into the system, you're just constantly fundraising. Like a quarter, a third of your time is spent fundraising. It doesn't have to be that way. If we just had a situation where the money couldn't flow in and wasn't so corrupting as it is, then people could actually serve the people. They could be on the ground talking to those working class people who are working at Canon or working at ice cream shops or working at UPS. Like, all of those people are just unreachable because, our politicians are in $10,000 a night, $10,000 plate fundraisers.
Right.
So that's one of the things. Get the right senators the right judges in the right places to overturn Citizens United to get money out of politics. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is, same thing, judges who want to overturn gerrymandered maps, because if you gerrymander, that's when politicians choose their voters, not the other way around.
Right.
And that's marginalizing of voters. And I think it should be, viewed as what it is, which is unconstitutional in my mind.
Absolutely. And just to give viewers a sense, right, we earned something close to 50% of the vote in the state Senate, and have, I think, a super minority. Mm-hmm. And same with the Executive Council. Yeah. Earned a fairly significant proportion amount of the number of votes, and have one executive councilor on the seats. And it's
even better example is my first year elected. Mm-hmm. We had 4 Republican executive councilors, and just like we do now, and 1 Democrat, mm-hmm. and we got almost 50.5% of the vote.
There it is.
The Democratic Party. So,
I didn't have the exact numbers, but so that's a problem locally, but it's a problem across the country as well.
And we see it now with Texas and California and all these people re-gerrymandering in the middle, or redistricting in the middle of the cycle. Like, it's wrong. It's a naked power grab, and nothing turns people off in society more than bad faith acting. Right. And it's just run amok now in politics, with everybody acts in bad faith, just trying to get power however they can get it. It's wrong.
Yeah, I hear a lot of commentary about people who don't vote in elections, and they're the plurality of who could be voters.
Right.
But if the system looks rigged,
why bother?
Why bother?
Yeah.
Right. So I think those are some powerful examples of how to maybe get more participation too.
Yeah, it's my motivation. We need to make it better.
Yeah.
So that it actually is responsive, which is what the theory of what it should be. Right.
Right. So given the current state of affairs, immigration is top of mind. Do you have some thoughts on what the Senate can do to address the problems that we're seeing with the immigration system, as well as some of the violence that we're seeing against a whole lot of people, not just immigrants?
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 things. One is Democrats are in the minority. I'd likely be in a minority, when elected. But we can still use our voices, mm-hmm. and form those partnerships with some of the people on the other side who I know are concerned about this too. Like, due process rights, when they're gone, it doesn't matter who's in charge. Like, you might like the guy in charge now, but someday the guy you don't like might be in charge, and they can now come in after you and abuse you. So, I think that there's a strong incentive for both parties to work together on this. You just got to make the case. I think I'm really hoping that the Senate is willing to maybe throw the filibuster down on this next funding of ICE. I think the money that they're spending on ICE is absurd, how much it's increased in the last budget year with a big, beautiful bill. Yeah. And I think it's up for renewal. It's like one of the appropriation bills that's running through right now. So, I think we probably do need to get rid of the ICE name because it's so toxic at this point. But what we need to do is reform the system so we're not using racial profiling as a normalized policing tactic, whether it's in local police or whether it's in the FBI or whether it's in ICE or Border Patrol, any other law enforcement agency. We should actually be properly training people so they're not just having 47 days of training, which apparently is what ICE is doing these days, and making sure that, the egregious things happening in ICE are also happening in the Border Patrol. They're kind of being lumped together in the same name. But like those helicopters when they were belaying into apartment buildings a few months ago in Chicago, that was actually the Border Patrol, not ICE.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of like, sometimes they can get conflated. So when you start hearing things like abolish ICE and stuff, it's like, well, if we abolish ICE, the problem doesn't go away. It's just Border Patrol that's going to be doing it all, right? So we need to change the system, reform the system. No more racist, racial profiling, xenophobically led, hearing a funny accent or a foreign language being spoken, you go harass those people. That's wrong. That's un-American. Yeah. And so those are the types of things I would like to see them do is, take away some of the funding from them and make sure that they're forced to be, they're held accountable. Like the Laken Riley bill is a terrible bill that was passed in the early part of last year. And it expands enforcement powers without expanding accountability to violations.
Right.
What do we expect is going to happen when you do that, And it gives the Trump administration a little bit of legal cover saying, well, this is what you guys gave us. They should never have voted for that. That was a huge mistake on anybody who voted for it, particularly Democrats who in this moment are screaming about what happened.
Right, absolutely. And when any of it's legal, it makes it hard to hold the whole system accountable.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Well, we're heading towards the end of our interview, but a few fun get to know you type questions,
sure, yeah.
if you would.
Can't wait.
So one question that's of particular interest to Merrimack residents: ice cream, hard or soft?
Hard ice cream.
Okay, is that what you?
Yeah, I work at Super Secret Ice Cream. I'll give them a plug. It's
Okay.
probably the best ice cream in the state of New Hampshire. You should probably go up there.
Okay.
They just got nominated today for the third James Beard Award in a row, 3 years in a row.
Okay, that's a nice plug, and a shout out. Favorite sport? Do you have a favorite sport?
Skiing
Skiing. Okay.
and whitewater rafting.
Ooh, you've got the whole year now
Yep.
covered. Yeah. If you had to choose, would you prefer an ocean or a lake?
A lake.
A lake. And are you a dog or a cat person?
I like both, but if I had to choose a dog,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have any pets?
I lost my dog in March.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So she was my partner in crime for a while. And
Yep.
I always say if I'm ever on a movie and I have to cry, I can just think of that moment and the tears will start coming.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a pretty short conversation. I'm sure you have a lot more to say, and people need to get to know you. So where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, so my social media handles are all the same across all the platforms. So it's Jared, Jared, FOR, NH. That's also my website, so jared4nh.com. But Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, Facebook, it's all Jared4nh.
Great.
My website has information, and if you are interested in learning more, you can also email me through my website. There's like an email me link or something, and you can volunteer. I'm looking for volunteers, looking for donations, and I would love people to reach out. Like people are starting to reach out now. It's really exciting because it shows that people are inspired by the message. So if you like the idea that we need real change, and that's not going to come from people who are just locked into the system, then give me a shout. I would love to hear from you.
Great. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. And Merrimack, that's our show for today. We'd like to hear from you about ideas for show topics, comments about what we're talking about. Reach out at talkmerrimack@gmail.com, or you can follow us at Talk Merrimack on Facebook, Blue Sky, or YouTube. I look forward to our next conversation.